What's up, guys? Welcome to Pack Rats MTG. I am Cam. This is my co-host Patrick. We are the Brothers Pack Rats, and we're here to bring you another Philosophyrexia episode. Today, we're going to be covering our favorite card type. And it's funny, we were talking about this topic, and we were saying, like, is there enough to say on this? And in discussing it, we came to the conclusion that there's infinite amounts of things to say about this because there's so many cool things we can share about the different card types. We can talk about the strategies that you employ using those card types, how they affect the game. So we're going to explore that a little bit. Patrick's going to open up starting with his favorite card type. We'll interact a bit, and then we'll get into mine and keep interacting until it dies down a little. So Patrick, of all of the card types in Magic, including Planeswalkers, even though that was a newer card type, including Planeswalker, which I know is not, I'm guessing is not going to be your favorite type. But of all of them out there, what are you going to call?
Well, Cam, let's test your psychic abilities here. What do you think I'm going to say?
I've got $20 on instance.
Oh, no, come on, man. You know me better than that. Land. There's only one right answer here. It is the land. See, now you're kicking yourself because you go, oh yeah, Patrick, you were the first person who started playing 26, 27, 28 lands in your standard control decks. Lands, baby. My favorite by far. Because here's why, really. I mean, why I say lands is because there's no faster way to most assuredly lose a game than by not having lands in your hand and not being able to cast stuff. Like, I hate scrounging around for mana more than anything in this Magic world. So I love lands, man. I love just having just lands in general, but lands have cool abilities. I love making chump blockers with lands. I love using hideaway lands to cheat stuff into the game. I love using Alchemist's Refuge right now is one of my favorite cards in Magic. I love being, a land that lets you cast things at instant speed. Awesome. And you're right, by the way, though, in terms of if I was going to go other than lands, definitely instants, for sure.
Yeah, so interesting thing that you say that because my favorite card type is also lands. And so we're definitely going to meet on the middle on that one. Because like you said, lands are not only the foundational currency in the game, but they provide support in so many unique ways, and they're not counterable. So it's so much different in that they hit the board, they take effect, and then the opponent usually will have a chance to respond. So, you might get caught with your pants down with a hideaway land or something, and well-timed Miner's Stone Rain or whatever. But the fact is, like, lands provide some really cool support. Man lands are incredible cards as a type in total. And I think back to the day of like Fairy Conclave, is it Spawning Bed, right? The whole Urza's Legacy cycle. Treetop Village. Oh my gosh, they're so cool, man. And they lands and the uniqueness and the diverse uniqueness of lands allowed you to play so many different strategies while still being able to push a pressure in a different type of way. So for instance, the creatureless control decks that beat you down with, Celestial Colonnade or like way OG. I mean, like, I'm talking way back in the day when it was like Mishra's Factory.
Yeah. Or one of my favorites, like the fact that you could turn a 1/1, Elvish Visionary into a massive creature by way of Kessig Wolfrun.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. Or even further back, like before the days of Kessig Wolfrun, there was Pendlehaven, right? So if you had a 1/1, totally. Super cool.
Right, Elfball. Yeah.
Yeah, or in the Urza's cycle of lands, I mean, they printed some dope lands in Urza's, dude. And one of them was a green tap regenerate target creature. Yavimaya Grove or something like that. It was also a legendary land, if I remember correctly. And it's a pretty valuable card at this point. It's 30, 40, 50 bucks. But man, so many cool things. And of course, the way OG, we can talk about straight duels, but like Bazaar of Baghdad and Library of Alexandra, and, Caracas, like some super cool old school lands. Okay, So
and hold on, and one more note on the lands before we get off of it, because we could spend an entire segment on just how great lands are. But we should also say, also cycling lands are great. I love cycling lands, right? Because just, you can, if you're running low on mana, you can use them as mana sources, or you can just use them as like a worse opt. It's awesome.
Right, which, by the way, that probably requires us to give a nod to the Ikoria set that came out with those triomes, or the Zygon, whatever they call them.
Right.
So they're tri-lands. There's only 5 of them. They didn't do, I think they're the enemy tri-lands. They didn't do the allied tries.
I think that's right, yeah.
But they have cycling on them, and they count for all 3 lands. What a great card. What an awesome, versatile card. I hope they come out with the ally cycle at some point.
Right. But it is cool
off.
that you've got cycling that spans the gambit of the original, just a blue for it's a Lonely Sandbar, and then you got the duels that cycled, and now you're getting the tri-lands that cycle. It's really cool. I mean, as a fan of lands, I couldn't be more excited about those.
Absolutely. In lands, you get removal. In lands, you get buff. You can get card draw. I mean, one of my favorite lands, Cephalid Coliseum, lets you fill the graveyard. It lets you cycle cards in your hand. In the same order, you had the Cabal Pit, which was removal on a stick. There's just so much versatility to the card type. And like you said, I mean, you were the first guy to play more lands than spells in a standard deck that I'm aware of, which is the running joke. And you figured out a way to get mana screwed anyway. I don't know how you do it. Maybe it's your curse for trying to ring.
Yeah. Well, I should say in Commander, in green-based decks, Blighted Woodland that is a staple, and also like Myriad Landscape, those type things. So the fact that lands themselves can be ramped now it's awesome, man. Lands are great card type. It's so great card. And then they came out with the landfall mechanic as if lands needed to be better. It's just, come on.
Yes, which we also will have to kind of honorable mention is cards that search generically for lands, not necessarily basic lands, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm thinking Expedition Map, which obviously also just came out of Double Masters. We have a truckload of those now. Great commander card, but you can fetch any piece that you need from your land base with something like an Expedition Map.
Yep.
And the fact that cards like that exist, Someone's Scrying and other things, it just makes lands that much better. Like, how could a card type be any cooler? Exactly. So with that, obviously, guys, we're agreed. I mean, and please comment. Tell us if you guys agree or disagree with us.
Even if the comment is "duh," of course, lands are the best. Like, come on, that's the point of this segment. We had to talk
Captain and Major Obvious over here. Okay, so secondarily, so we both agree lands are the business. You would say instants are probably your favorite card type after that.
Of course, wouldn't you?
So in terms of cards that I play on a volume basis, instant would be the go-to. But in terms of mechanically,
you're going to say creatures. No?
Enchantments, dude. And I'm not talking about from like an enchantress perspective. I'm talking about like the fact that, enchantments were made to be this permanent that affected things. Sitting over here on the side. And I always loved that. It was like you could play this card that stood there and affected the whole game state. And back in the day, it was Enchant Worlds. You remember that?
Yeah.
And I loved the whole feel and mechanic of that. And obviously, as time has gone on, enchantments have probably, I think we would agree, have gotten less and less competitive, right? But there's still a really cool card and a card type. And in terms of stuff like Commander or formats where you can stand to slow down a little bit, they can really be a fun way to affect the board state, especially in a multiplayer scenario.
Well, I will say real quick, when you say enchantments have gotten less powerful, people are going to scream at you and say Wilderness Reclamation just got banned in Standard. So yeah, there are still those ridiculous broken enchantments that come out once in a while. But I think you're right by and large. Like if you average over the number of enchantments, they're probably not one of the strongest types. So I think I'd agree with you there.
Well, and I'm talking about competitive across the gamut, right? Like you go to Vintage right now and you'd be hard pressed to find a single enchantment that was played. You know?
Yeah.
I think Counterbalance is probably played still in Legacy, I'm guessing. Which, okay, there's one, right?
Yeah.
But,
yeah,
you know,
it is interesting. Usually in Standard, it seems like, in Standard, it does seem like their enchantments do become the star pretty often. I mean, there was, Counterbalance was in Standard for a while. Bitter Blossom, when it was in Standard, became huge, obviously. So, when Black White Tokens was a thing, Glorious Anthem, as ultimate card it was, like, became a star again, and you've got things like a newer enchantment. What's the one that gives them Riot and they can't be countered? Rhythm of the Wild. Yeah, Rhythm of the Wild. That's a great new enchantment that did very well in Standard. So I think enchantments actually do really well in Standard, but I think your mind is going more towards like the Eternal formats. And in those, I think you're right. Enchantments are pretty underrepresented.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. You're not going to show up with a vintage deck or legacy deck. I don't know the modern format too well. From what I've been told, Tempered Steel has made a little bit of a comeback. Maybe that's true. I love that card, by the way. Just a big Glorious Anthem for artifact creatures. But yeah, I just think that they're cool card type concepts, And I think back to, like, of course, Stand Still, back when I was playing that in competitive Magic, and like Sterling Grove, and there's just Opalescence.
Do you remember when I played Fairy's Moat because Zoo was so popular?
Yes.
And it just single-handedly shut down Zoo.
Train wreck. It was awesome. Yeah. So anyway, and of course, we could go back around to kind of finish off the instance discussion. I mean, for you as a Azorius guy, that's cantrips, it's draw spells, it's counters, it's removal, what doesn't instance provide?
You're just really holding the game in your clutches, like, you've got marbles that you're just going, how am I gonna, manipulate? So it's just, instants are the best, man.
Probably the most competitive card type too.
Yeah,
right? Instants and sorceries as a whole.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, when you're thinking of Eternal format, sorceries might actually be more broken than instants.
There's certainly the game finishers, right? Like, you have the Storm cards, but a lot of your tutors are still instants. And then obviously your gnarly counters, your Mana Drains, your Force of Wills, they obviously have to be instants for their effect to work.
Right.
Swords to Plowshares.
Like a lot of the discard, is obviously sorcery speed that has huge impacts on the game. Like your Reanimator type cards, those can be instants too, actually, right? Like Shallow Grave and those sorts of things. But
yeah, sure.
They can kind of be split.
Exhume, Reanimate, these are sorcery cards. Entomb, sorcery.
Right.
So anyway, okay. I think we agree. Lands are the business.
We gave absolutely no love. Maybe since we didn't mention artifacts and creatures at all, we could just maybe spit out 3 of each that we really like, right? Just to give them a somewhat of a spotlight.
Yeah,
give me 3 artifacts and 3 creatures that you love.
Well, as a Commander player, Skull Clamp is always fun. I really enjoy that. As of late, because I've been playing Erebos so much, I really like Lash Rife. Super cool enchantment buffer. In the same list, Whip of Erebos. Give all your dudes lifelink. You can reanimate dudes to give them haste. Also another cool artifact. But you have the spheres, and you have Static Orb, and you have a lot of ways to squeeze interaction out of the game at the artifact card type spot. So I think it deserves plenty of love. Lodestone Golem, there's basically an artifact aggro deck that's doing really well in Vintage, from what I understand. Artifacts are a great card type. I think for us as Commander player, and you and I have had this discussion before, it's just people are playing artifacts, which means everybody's packing heat for artifacts.
Yeah, dude.
And
Vandal Blast everyone plays Vandal Blast. Every single person. And it's just it's such a feel bad when you're, you know, trying to incorporate artifacts as a big part of your strategy, and they just can pack one card and take out your board. I mean, it's just not, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I will say though, that deck that you bought as a pre-constructed commander deck with Duretti at the helm was a very cool and probably the most competitive of those 5 decks they came out with that year.
Definitely.
And you ended up playing it for a while. You tweaked it and tuned it because you enjoyed the mechanics.
Well, yeah, I played it for a while because it took me a while to get warmed to Commander. If you remember, I was like the Scrooge of our play group in terms of Commander at the first bit. Like, I don't play, you know, Commander. This is nonsense. Let's play a real format. But have since become, you know, an absolute fanatic of Commander. So I think I actually played that deck for much longer than I would have had I come around, you know, quicker to the format itself. But I agree with you. It was a great pre-constructed deck. I mean, you know, Goblin Welders and Worm Coil Engine. And it's just like, so really? Awesome. In a pre-con? Okay.
It was a great list. So on that note,
really good.
I'm gonna force back the discussion your way to come up with 3 creatures to throw a little love in that direction.
Okay. Let's do it. Rampaging Ballast.
Oh, wow.
I love that card.
It's incredible.
It's so, and again, as someone that branches back to us loving lands, but it's got maybe the coolest landfall ability of all time, right? Like, put in a 4/4 beastie every time a land hits the field. Oh, it's so good.
I don't know, dude. I'm still going to give a nod to Royal Elemental. It's not gotten enough love, in my opinion, lately. It's the 2 and 3 blue for 3/2 flyer. Landfall, take control of it.
3 and 2 blue, I think, right?
It's fairly blue intensive, but the point is you get to
steal
steal
guy
dudes.
Every time it's ridiculous.
Super awesome.
I mean, see, I'm not with you because I think that card is legit overpowered, especially like in a commander environment.
I agree.
So I'd be happy if I didn't see Royal Elemental again.
I don't blame you. I'm just saying, you just don't see it around as often. I mean, Rampaging Ballast is a fairly common card to see in Commander. You don't see Royal Elemental as much, which is interesting. Anyway, though, 2 more dudes.
2 more, right. Let's go with, you know, maybe just to bring the power, like remind us that creatures can still be broken, like Venser, Shaper Savant.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
One of our friends, John, plays that guy in his blink deck, and once you get a Venser online with a semi-reliable way to blink it, I mean, it's a shutout. That's game over. So Venser, and then let's see, I've gone with a green card and a blue card, so I am doing cards kind of up my color alley. So let's go with a white creature. Who's a white creature I really like? I'm gonna say Yeah, I'm actually going to say Thraben Inspector. We mentioned him either I think we mentioned him on a video we just did, but the 1-mana 1/2 human that gives you a clue when he comes in. I'm really impressed by that card. It's such a great, that's one of my favorite 1-mana creatures of all time.
I have to be honest, I remember having a discussion with you about Thraben Inspector going like, man, some of the top players in Magic value this card as like a good pick in draft. And I, you know, I was just like, I get it. You know, it's a dude. He gives you a card to replace him. But, you know, the more you think about it, for one, he's a 1/2 for 1, which automatically puts him in a different point in terms of creature interaction.
Exactly.
But more importantly, like, you know, he does replace himself, but he gets an artifact on the table. And there are a lot of things that rely on the number of permanents you have or the number of artifacts in play, for instance, like Metalcraft, right? So
yeah,
it's a lot more intricate than it would probably seem initially. And it really is a great card. I mean,
yeah,
there's no doubt about it. It just gives you a lot of setup opportunities.
Yeah.
You know? But
yep.
Anyways, how much time did we spend talking about this topic? Guys,
what are we at? Do we need to cut this thing?
Probably. Let's go ahead and call it. So I'm going to wrap it up for us. Guys, this is Pack Rats MTG. Thanks for hanging out and just listening to us talk. This is what we're about, man. We love Magic. We love the community. We probably already love you guys. Throw a comment our way. Tell us what your favorite card type is. Tell us why we're wrong or why we're right. Remember to throw a subscribe, a like. We do want to hear from you, and share it with your buds. We'd like to continue to grow this community at large and contribute where we can to the fun, the enjoyment factor. And we'll catch you next time. Have a great rest of your whatever.